What's up guys, this is VinylicPuma, back with another Borderlands 2 Top 10 Weapon Types video, and today we'll be going over what I think are the 10 best SMGs. Now, like all of the videos in this series, we'll be including newly added gear from the Commander Loot DLC, and the rankings here are going to be weighted based on how powerful, how rare, and how useful or good a given SMG is. You'll be hard-pressed to find a bad SMG on this list, though I think you'll find some of the higher-ranked entries are truly exceptional and may end up being the only SMGs that you'll really ever need. Also, and as one last thing before we start, but definitely be sure to smash like on this video to help save mirrors from being broken across the world, and also leave a comment in the comments section below letting me know what your favorite Borderlands 2 SMG is. If you don't do this, mirrors will start to break across the world, and you will surely get bad luck as a result, so be sure to smash like to prevent bad luck. With the engage bait out of the way, let's go ahead here and start with our number 10 entry, which is going to be the Hellfire and Nirvana. So this entry is essentially a 2-for-1, as it includes both the legendary Hellfire SMG and the effervescent Nirvana SMG. The only real difference between these two is that the Nirvana is a lot rarer and has the effervescent type weapon skin, but other than that, both are basically the same, and for that reason, I'll mainly be talking about the Hellfire for the purposes of our number 10 entry. The Hellfire is known for having fairly decent projectile DPS while having a decent amount of the damage that it deals be through damage over time effects. For a lot of difficulties like Ultimate Voltage mode, I'd say you'll probably get more out of the individual projectile damage than the damage over time effect, but it is worth noting that the damage over time effect is usually high enough to counteract most of the enemy's health regen, provided the enemy is slagged. And with that in mind, it's probably a good idea if you use the Hellfire to use it against something that is slagged rather than something that's not. Also, you may be interested to know that the Hellfire does benefit from grenade damage bonus, making it a decent choice for either Krieg or Axton players. So keep that in mind if you decide to play either of those two. The real dilemma you're faced with here is whether you want a Hellfire or a Nirvana. Of the two, the Hellfire is more practical since it drops from Scorch during and after the cult following False Idols side quest mission in Frostburn Canyon, but of course it can also be farmed during Destruct Peak runs, where Scorch will occasionally appear. The Nirvana is cool for the bling, but it's just really rare and only drops from infected badass saplings throughout the Commander Loot DLC, so if it were me, I would just go with the Hellfire instead. After all, both have similar stats. Number 9. ETech SMGs. Now, while this is a more generic entry and includes a number of different non-unique SMGs, it is worth noting that you will want to avoid ETech SMGs that are from Bandit. This is because Bandit ETech SMGs don't benefit from grenade damage bonus, and compared to other ETech SMGs that are available, whether they be from Dahl, Hyperion, Tediore, or Malawan, I think you'll agree that all of those variants are just way better. What makes ETech SMGs good mainly comes down to their high base damage relative to other weapons that are available. As a great example, Tediore ETech SMGs tend to excel when compared to standard Tediore SMGs in both the base damage and magazine size departments, yielding far better reload damage overall. In the case of variants from other manufacturers, they're usually just stronger versions of weapons you might find normally that can be boosted by grenade damage bonus. All this said, there are some things you'll need to keep in mind when selecting an ETech SMG. Most importantly, ETech SMGs all have fairly high ammo consumption, and most non-ETech SMGs tend to be more efficient with ammo relative to the amount of damage that they deal. Additionally, and depending on what SMG you get, you're going to want to make sure that you get one with a scope, as certain sites like the Hyperion site make using a ETech SMG impossible due to all of the muzzle flash. I'll admit this is a bit of a pet peeve, but it is something worth considering. While you're not going to have a designated drop for ETech SMGs, they do drop fairly frequently in Ultimate Voltage mode, so just be sure to keep an eye out if you want one. Number 8. The Lascaux. So, the Lascaux might just be one of the easiest weapons to acquire in Borderlands 2, and is especially useful in Ultimate Voltage mode due to how the weapon scales as you progress in both level and overpower level. Essentially, all you have to do is visit the cave in Frostburn Canyon where the Lascaux is, and provided you're in Ultimate Voltage mode, it should scale to your current level. As for the gun itself, the Lascaux never comes in an element. It always has a ×2 projectile multiplier that uses only one SMG ammo, and the gun has a fairly high rate of fire, which allows you to fire a quote-unquote wall of bullets at would-be enemies. This of course comes at the cost of reduced range and makes it more suited to dealing damage up close, but considering that this is a free gun, I think you'll find that that's more than fair. Like a few other SMGs on this list, I think you'll find that the Lascaux is actually pretty decent on every character, because Gaige can pair it with Close Enough, Maya can boost it with a Cat class mod, Axton can pair it with Metal Storm, and you may find it's a decent gun to gunzerk with Salvador. So be sure to experiment, as I think you'll find that it works pretty well on everyone. I won't go over the entire route for getting a Lascaux here, but as long as you head into the cave between the Black Toe Cavern and Frozen Ant sublocations in Frostburn Canyon, you should be able to find one of these things pretty easily. Number 7. The Slagga. What the Slagga lacks in damage output or DPS, it more than makes up for as a fantastic utility weapon. As the name implies, the Slagga is an SMG that's designed with the intention of slagging enemies. This actually ends up making the Slagga a very effective weapon regardless of the weapon's actual level, because it's just used to slag enemies rather than deal direct damage. Compared to other popular weapons with high slag chance like the Grog Nozzle or some Malawan and Hyperion sniper rifles, the Slagga has the benefit of having a high projectile multiplier, moderately high fire rates, and a large magazine size. This seems to ensure that when you fire the Slagga at enemies, they will be slagged, and then of course from there you can finish enemies off with other weapons. Getting your hands on a Slagga can and will make the third playthrough easier, and while it's more difficult to get a Slagga than many other weapons that you might come across, it's well worth it due to how these aren't quite as level dependent as 99.9% of the other weapons that are present in Borderlands 2. If you want a Slagga, I'd say your best bet is to get one to drop from Jimbo and Tector Hodunk, provided you side with the Zaffords during the Hodunks vs. Zaffords Clan War questline. Number 6. The Blotch. Since I'm not sure if I can say we'll refer to it as the Blotch, since that's a lot less cumbersome to say than family-friendly SMG. Beyond that though, what makes the Blotch so special is its amazingly high accuracy under sustained fire, and the sheer speed at which it can attain this accuracy. Additionally, the Blotch also has the benefit of having high critical hit bonus, and this of course naturally goes well with the high accuracy potential, and when paired with proper equipment and sufficient skill, the Blotch can achieve some impressive DPS. The only real problem with this thing is that I think it's hard to use effectively, or at the very least, there's less margin for error, as you're really going to want to always be scoring criticals. For that reason, I prefer to pair the Blotch with Maya and her face lock abilities, since that ensures you'll have the easiest time performing criticals. Other than that one small thing though, the Blotch is a great Hyperion SMG, and if you want one, it can drop from the bunker in his specific location near 1,000 Cuts. Just be sure to keep an eye out for these, as I've seen these drop through the floor. Number 5. The Avenger. So the Avenger is one of a few pearlescents that ends up returning from Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2. However, it's worth noting that the Borderlands 1 variant is a combat rifle, while the Borderlands 2 variant is an SMG. Both Avengers have the ability to passively regenerate ammo for their corresponding weapon type, though, and true to Borderlands 2's manufacturer gimmicks, the Borderlands 2 Avenger SMG explodes like a grenade when reloaded. Unlike other TDRs, the reload behaves a lot like a bouncing Betty in the sense that it fires a projectile in a circular pattern. This makes the reload more difficult to take advantage of, as that final explosion is just a lot more unpredictable than when you conventionally throw a regular TDR SMG. But the main benefit is that the damage potential, unlike other TDR SMGs, can be enhanced from not only grenade damage bonus, but also amp damage bonus. So if you were to pair this with a B shield, you might find that the Avenger can deal a crazy amount of damage. Of course, and as alluded to earlier though, you still have to learn the Avenger's unique reload, and because this weapon travels much like a rubberized grenade or bouncing Betty upon reloading, it can be very difficult to properly gauge distance to get the explosions to hit on target. So while the Avenger can be more powerful than a lot of other TDRs, it's also just a lot harder to use. Like other Generation 1 pearlescents like the Unforgiven, Sawbar, or Tunguska, the Avenger is obtained from similar sources. This means you can get it from the Commander Lilith DLC bosses in Ultimate Voltage mode, Legendary Loot Midgets in Ultimate Voltage mode, and of course, oh my god what the heck, at Digistruct Peak in Ultimate Voltage mode. Just farm one of those sources and you will get pearlescence to drop. Number 4. The Infection Cleaner. While I suppose I could have included this SMG with the Avenger, I decided to make the Infection Cleaner its own entry simply because there are a few things that help distinguish it from the Avenger. Obviously, the weapon skin is most obvious, however, the Infection Cleaner can only come in Fire Element, the bouncing Betty projectiles always deal non-elemental damage, and due to the slightly higher base damage on the Infection Cleaner, it's capable of more powerful reload damage should you decide to take advantage of the reload. After that, pretty much everything else is the same, as you can still regenerate ammo, you've got your Betty projectiles, and the reload damage is boosted by amp damage from the B-Shield. Where I'd say these really differ is in terms of application. The Infection Cleaner is reserved almost exclusively for reload damage and would make for a good choice to use against most bosses thanks to its Fire Elemental Explosion. On the flip side, however, the non-elemental Betty projectiles hurt the Infection Cleaner's mobbing potential, as you can't match the enemy's elemental weaknesses as well as you can with an Avenger, which has the element of its Betty projectiles derived from the weapon's element. So just be sure to keep that in mind when choosing either the Infection Cleaner or the Avenger. Ultimately, though, the Infection Cleaner is a superior choice for Avenger-style reloads, and if you want one of these things, they have a chance to drop from the new Pandoran soldiers that appear throughout the Commander Lilith DLC, so just be sure to keep an eye out. Number 3. The Tattler. A good way to think of the Tattler is that it's sort of like a more offensive-based version of the Slagga. Like the Slagga, you're getting a ×3 projectile multiplier and a high magazine size. However, and unlike the Slagga, you're getting a weapon that can come in all elements, has decent damage potential per shot fired, and seems to always spawn with a bladed accessory, which might be nice if you like to roleplay as Squall. Video game references aside, the Tattler is mainly used as a high-power SMG, and while I wouldn't recommend it on every character due to its slow projectile speed and questionable accuracy, it can actually prove to be a pretty powerful weapon on Maya, provided you're pairing it with a Cat class mod. The only real problem with this thing is that you have to farm Hyperius for one, which can be pretty difficult depending on what character you've chosen. Fortunately, and if you do end up taking him down, the Tattler is one of 3 Seraph items that will always drop, so assuming you can beat Hyperius, the chances of getting a Tattler is pretty high. Otherwise though, I think you'll agree that the Tattler is a pretty great SMG, so definitely be sure to pick one of these up if you get the chance. Number 2. The Babymaker. While we've got quite a number of TDR SMGs on this list, I think the Babymaker is by far my favorite. This is mainly because the Babymaker is just way easier to use than the Avenger or Infection Cleaner, as the reload is a lot more conventional, even with its signature twist. For the uninitiated, the Babymaker can spawn either 1 or 2 child Babymakers that also explode, effectively doubling or tripling the overall reload damage. Though this may seem cumbersome and may not always yield the ×3 reload damage you might expect, it's worth noting that the damage you deal from the Babymaker is at a significantly lower ammo cost than you might see on other popular TDR SMGs in Borderlands 2. So with that in mind, I think it's safe to say that the Babymaker is a better choice since you'll actually be able to perform more TDR reloads overall with a full SMG ammo pool. If you want a Babymaker, you'll need to farm Madame von Bartlesby either during or after the You Are Cordially Invited Party Prep side quest. This mini-boss is a bit of a pain, but farming it will allow you to get one of the better TDR SMGs in Borderlands 2. And for our final entry, number 1, the Bane. Just kidding, the Sandhawk. So I don't think this is really that much of a surprise to anyone. After all, I think it's fair to say that without a question that the Sandhawk is the most powerful SMG in Borderlands 2 that's also the easiest to get. It's easily recognizable in both solo and co-op play, as its projectiles fire in the shape of a bird flapping its wings, so whether the bird is orange, green, blue, purple, or white, you'll pretty much know that you or whoever you're watching is using a Sandhawk. What makes the Sandhawk so desirable is its compatibility with the B-Shield. What makes the Sandhawk so good with the B-Shield is that it fires about 8 projectiles in total, with about 7 or so being unlisted, And since unlisted projectiles get full amp damage from the B shield, this is the primary source for a lot of the Sandhawk's damage output and makes it a great weapon to take on bosses, provided you don't have the B shield's capacity to deplete during the fight. What's also nice about the Sandhawk is that it's more item dependent than it is build or character dependent, meaning that all you really need is a Sandhawk and a B shield to really get a lot out of the Sandhawk. Granted, some characters are better to pair with the Sandhawk and B shield combo than others. However, you will find that most characters will be able to benefit the combo in some way. So for example, Axton's improved shield recharge delay may help with the B shield if it depletes. Salvador's money shot can really make the final shot really hit like a truck. Zero's bore can allow you to bore enemies and deal a bunch of damage. And of course, it works great on Maya, provided you pair it with a cat or legendary cat class mod. At the end of the day, the Sandhawk is a great weapon, and if you want it, all you have to do is play through the main story missions for the Captain Scarlet DLC, and you should receive one as a quest reward by completing the Whoops mission. Feel free to do this a couple times, as it's possible to get a Sandhawk in all elements. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to leave a like, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more Borderlands videos, and as always, and again, thank you all so much for supporting this channel. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.